Hello, this is Andy over at Falco Canine Academy. We're going to talk about a very controversial subject right now. And this is not going to be easy for some people to watch or maybe even hear some other stories that I have to share to explain my point of view on this little incident. It may also surprise you, my view, because I've been asked by a lot of people, and it's been a while that this happened. I think we started hearing about it at the beginning of last week, I think. And I've been asked and asked and asked, and my daughter shared it with me and wanted to know my opinion. And of course, other people wanted to get my opinion on this whole incident. And I think the people that know me best know my answer, or who know me better, did not find that my answer was that shocking. But there's other people who go, wait a minute, but I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to try to explain it. I'm going to try to explain my point of view. You don't have to agree with my point of view. And you can be very strong in your opinion, and that is fantastic. I love that. We have a lot going on right now where people have a strong opinion. Sometimes, unfortunately, a strong opinion can close you off to facts. And so there are some facts I want to bring out, and there's some things that I want to discuss and make sure that people are aware of when they're looking at stuff like this and think, oh my God, and then go, oh, okay, well, I understand. And there's definitely something to be looked at, that this situation was handled poorly. That's for sure. The handling of this German Shepherd in this situation was done poorly. Now, there's intent, and there's purposely injuring or being abusive to dogs and things like that I'm going to talk about in just a second, that will maybe allow some of you to kind of look at this situation differently. So those of you that have not seen it, I'm going to I got to go on my phone here to see and just make sure everything's broadcasting appropriately before I go too far. You may hear my voice here in a second come across because I'm going on my phone. I'm using an app called Mimo Live, which allows me to share my screen and show video and that kind of stuff. So it doesn't allow me to see comments or just make sure and see that things are going on well. Wow, I already have people on watching. The title might have grabbed some people's attention. And so just in case you didn't see the video, I'm going to go ahead and play it for you now. You may or may not be able to hear the audio on it. I'm not sure in the selection I've used in my app here whether the audio will play, but it doesn't matter. It's really about what you see, because that's probably more important, because you have somebody that's narrating in the back who obviously is not a dog trainer, doesn't know what they're talking about, and that happens a lot. People put their perceptions in, and then it can change the tone of what it is we're seeing with our eyes. And so that the person holding the camera knows probably nothing about dogs, knows nothing about the situation, knows nothing, right? Which also I think may have added to the controversy. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. It's from TMZ. I'm going to go ahead and give them some free advertisement here. And I'm going to play this video. If you have not seen this video, if you are really, there's some people that, I know that when a dog gets their paw stepped on, they cry. And so this video might not be for you. But let me just go ahead and I'm going to make my screen bigger here and play this video. So just watch the video. If you can't handle a dog trying to be put in the water that doesn't want to go, then don't watch. But it's not that big of a deal. All right.
Don't worry, it's warm water at least. Well, he ain't gonna calm down until he goes in the water. Just gotta throw him in. Oh, here he goes. Oh no. Okay, you get his feet wet, he learns it's not cold. Look, he wants to go in. Oh, he wants to get away. Just throw him in. Oh, here it goes. Oh, he's gonna end up going in with him. Here, boy. Oh, no.
All right, so let me get rid of that screen. So a lot's happening there. Not a lot of it good. I'm going to be quite frank with you that not a lot of that was good. It was mismanagement of the situation. The dog trainer obviously doesn't know what he's doing. And I don't talk, those of you that know me, I try my very best, my hardest not to talk poorly about other trainers. because that is just rampant in our industry, and it causes confusion between customers, right? Because every dog trainer says that every other dog trainer sucks and they're the only good one on the planet. But I can only comment based on what I see in there, and whoever was handling that German Shepherd, whether it's it almost looked like it was a guy that's never had any experience with dogs, because he does things that a well-trained trainer should not do. And I could piece this whole thing, or I can take this whole thing apart piece by piece, and really make this a probably an hour or 2 hour long video. But I'm going to really try to do my best to keep it down to 4 hours. No, I'm going to try to keep it down to a little bit. So let's just first talk about what my first thoughts were when I saw it. My first thoughts were, wow, really? They put this dog into a situation that obviously he has not ever been in before and doesn't want to have any part of, but yet they're continuing with the process of getting the dog in the water. Now, I see this often. I see this a lot with dog trainers. I see it a lot with people that they try to take their dog into a situation where the dog doesn't want to go, and so they're starting. Let's say that a fearful incident with a dog at a 10 is it, and that's what this case. This is at 10. A 10 really would be when the dog starts biting you and growling at you and saying, "I'm going to bite you if you don't stop putting me in this situation." So that'd be a 10. So this was probably more of an 8, right? So the dog's at about an 8. And they're starting at an 8, trying to get the dog to do something. In dog training, that is not, when you see that, you shouldn't even go much further. You need to drop all the way down to 1. So what would 1 be? 1 would be that you reset. Unfortunately, it would cost the movie studio of several $1,000s to put everything on hold while they go take a dog into a situation that is a 1. A 1 might be a kiddie pool. You take this dog and put him in a kiddie pool, right? And have him walk through the kiddie pool. And as he goes in, you give him a treat or a toy, you pet him, you let him know he's being a good dog, and then he comes out of the kiddie pool, right? You do that 5, 6, 7 times until the dog almost on his own jumps in the water, because he's doing it now because he knows if he does this, he's going to get a treat. So what next? Well, then you get somebody to swirl the water around so it looks like a whirlpool, and then you have the dog go in. All right, that says 1.5. All right, so 1.5 is now the water's actually moving, right? And you get the dog to go in, you give him the treats, you do the whole thing. In most cases, the dog probably won't take that any differently, because it's hard for them to see this it's swirling. But maybe the sound of the water is, maybe there's sound that the water is making as it's swirling around. And then what do you do from there? Well, then you have 2 people on either side of the pool shaking the water and making it really splash and maybe a wave. This is 1.75, right? The dog comes in, the dog goes in, and so you go through this process, working all the way up to where the 8 is for this dog, or maybe even the 9, where you now take the dog to that very same pool, but you turn off that rushing water that we see in the background, and we simply have a way of that dog getting into the pool without having to jump or do drop from 3 feet or 4 feet high, right? And so I hope you get my point. And so what they didn't do is realize right away that they're putting this dog into a poor situation for this dog, and he probably would do it if you would back off and start at 1 and then work up to where the dog jumps in, handles the flowing water, and doesn't sink as he approaches the end towards the end. The reason the dog did not know how to do it. It's simply the dog did not know something that he doesn't know, right? And then he got this rushing water that pushes him against the wall of that pool, and he sinks, right? So what did I also see on the video? I saw a video that a guy was trying to handle it in a way that he was trying to help the dog. In his mind, we have to look at intent. Being a police officer for 24 years, just about every crime that we look at intent. What was the intent? Did they intend to murder somebody? Did they intend to punch somebody in the face? Or were they stretching and accidentally hit somebody in the face? The intent, the purpose of doing something is really, really important. Now, did this man, whoever he is, again, I'm not sure that he's even a dog trainer, again, based on what I'm seeing, what he was doing, he was trying to be so careful that he was causing more stress. We do that as human beings with our dogs. We end up putting our dogs in more stress when we're trying to be nice, right? This can be illustrated when a Chihuahua or small dog is barking at the door and growling and snarling and showing fear, and then the human being picks the dog up and cuddles them and holds them and pets them while they're growling and snarling, and you're adding more stress because now you're holding the dog closely and tight, telling the dog that you're fearful for it, so now the dog becomes more fearful, right? We do this every day. Not me, but there's people that do this every day with their dog. They cause more stress with their dog by trying to be comforting to a dog in a stressful situation, when in fact they're causing more stress. We see it all the time. We talk about it in dog training, in our group training. Pulling back on a leash when they see somebody approaching. What we're trying to do is keep the dog safe, so we pull the dog back to us. When in fact, what we're telling the dog is that we are so afraid of that human being that we're reeling you in because we're so afraid of that person coming, which causes more stress on the dog, right? The same thing that you're seeing here in this video is the very same thing. Right? So there's many people that are looking at this and saying, oh, what a horrible thing. However, many people, including the people that are probably most outraged, do the same thing with their dog almost on a daily basis, causing more fear by trying to be that caretaker, coddler, and that kind of stuff. And you're saying, well, how can this be when he's still continuing to lower the dog into the water? Because he has a job to do. Apparently, he's being paid to make this happen. And again, there's pressure on the movie set that we need to get the shot, and it's causing all those people that you see are being paid, right? The person who's running that water that's causing, the dog the most stress is being paid. The cameraman, everything's costing money and money and money, right? And so there's this pressure. I got to get through this. I'm going to try to make this as easy on the dog as I can. And by doing so, he's causing more stress. The guy does say in there, just throw the dog in. You know what? I got to tell you that might have been the best thing to do for that dog. If it was going to happen anyway, he should have just thrown the dog in, as opposed to going through all the other stuff and including hanging the dog there for just a period of time and then pulling him back up. Again, it doesn't seem like this gentleman, and I can still call him a gentleman because I really think he was trying to do his job. He was trying to be mindful of the dog's feelings and safety, but did not realize he was making it worse by what he was doing. Forget that. I even said that. And so trying to lower the dog down, holding him by the collar, hanging him there, and then pulling him back up, seeing his neck tweak, that kind of stuff. I want to remind you that the neck is one of the strongest parts of the dog's body. And so thinking that, I've heard people say, oh, he's trying to break the dog's neck, or he could have broken it. No. The dog's neck is so stinking strong. I have seen, which I'm going to talk about in a minute, I've seen some brutality done with situations that should have broken a dog's neck that didn't break a dog's neck. What he was doing, he doesn't know this, right? He doesn't know that what I'm about to tell you, what I know to be true. But he shouldn't have been in that situation. The dog simply was put into a situation that caused him fear. The human being was trying to be as gentle as possible, when in turn he was actually making the problem worse. And of course, then it looks worse on video, and caused this whole situation to be blown, I think, out of proportion, only because there's not intent. The guy was not intending to hurt that dog. They didn't handle it well. Nobody knew what it was what they were doing. That doesn't make it right. You can still decide not to go to the movie. No charges will be brought up, as far as I can tell. I mean, they may try that, but the sheer brutality that I've heard people talking about is not present. It is a poorly handled situation with a dog that was not prepared to perform that act. And it's not a behavior. They just wanted the dog to perform an act, and it was poorly handled. Another situation here that we see that causes confusion with the dog is that the dog fights back. And I'm going to show you this video again because I want you to see how we cause this very same confusion. And I want this to be very clear, because we do this, again, all the time with our dogs. We give them mixed information, which then teaches the dog to either fight harder because we just told the dog, because he was successful in fighting against this, by petting the dog inappropriately at the wrong time, we teach the dog, oh, that must be what they want. They want me to fight back. And let me just show you one more time, and I'll stop it right where it is that I see the misinformation occur. Let's see if it'll play again. So unfortunately, for those of you that can't handle it, are going to see it again. It happens early, though. So right here, he's holding the dog, and you can tell the dog does not want to go in by the way the dog is leaning away. He does not want to go. The dog's get me out of here. So right here, the dog fights back and gets out. So right there, the dog fights back and gets out. Right, the dog goes, I'm avoiding the situation. I'm going to leave. Now watch what the man does in the green suit. Right there. You see him pet the dog on the hindquarters. Now watch what he does here. Now he pets the dog on the head. telling the dog what you just did was perfect, because you know what he uses that pet for? I'm sure if he is the dog trainer or the guy who owns the dog or what have you, he tells the dog that you did something correct by touching and petting. So the dog looks back when he does that, when he pets him on the head and says, oh, all right, that's what you wanted me to do. You wanted me to fight back. That does not mean the dog didn't, wanted to go in, but because we petted him, now he thinks the opposite. No, I'm just saying there's reinforcers happening, which even causes the situation to be more difficult for the dog to understand. The dog's getting cross messages. Where we see that, again, let's just go back to our door situation, is when a dog is barking at the door and growling and snarling, and we're saying, stop, stop, stop doing that, and then we're petting the dog. In our mind, we think we're calming the dog down. What we're doing is telling the dog, what you are doing is exactly what I want you to do at that point in time. Growling, snarling, being fearful, thinking about biting whatever's on the other side of the door, whatever it is that's going through that dog's mind. When you pet them, you're telling them that's exactly what I want you to do. So we're going to just add that to the mix. I was going back and forth whether I wanted to even bring that up, but I thought that it was important to talk about that because we do that also. All right, so there's a lot going on there. Was it right? No. Is it correct handling of the situation? No. The dog should have been taken down to 1, maybe even 0.5, right, of training. Maybe the sound of water, splashing, taking a hose and making it make that sound. That's where you start with this dog. Even if you believe that this dog would do it, and we do this all the time with police dogs, we start from ground zero. We start from, at least at Falco Canine Academy. I'm going to talk about what other police dog trainers do in just a second. But at Falco Canine Academy, we start with ground zero. I remember we were training dogs for the Kingdom of Bahrain, and their trainers came over from the Middle East and said, I want this dog to get on this tabletop and play with a ball. And they were taking these fresh green dogs that I just imported from Ireland, and they were expecting them to jump onto a unstable table, right, like a card table, which was slick on the top, and wanted the dog to play. The dogs have never been on a card table. I told them before, I go, this is not something we would start with. We would train the dog up to that, like fold the legs in, put that on the ground, and then have the dog step on it, right? You don't want to do it when it's shaky and unstable, especially if we don't know. The worst thing you can do is take a dog that you don't know, or has never been in that situation before, and start there. Right? Because what can happen? What can happen when we have a dog jump onto a fold-out table that you see at trade shows and that kind of stuff? What can happen if even a dog that may have a little bit of experience, what can happen if you have a dog jump up on the table who's never done it before? The dog can jump up so fast that he slides off the end, which I've seen, slides off the end and then crashes and burns on the other side. Does the dog want to do that again? No. Is it going to make your job harder as a trainer? Yes. All right. What else can happen? Well, you can accidentally not have folded out the legs properly, and then when the dog is up there, the legs suddenly collapse. Have we seen that happen? Have you seen that happen when you're setting up a table at a party? Yes, all the time, right? And so if a dog is in that situation where the legs collapse underneath him, is he going to want to jump on that table again? No. All right. So do we want to put a dog in a situation that we don't know for sure that he can handle? If he's never seen rushing water that he's had to jump in from 3 feet above, and then negotiate and swim to a person who's yelling his name when the dog is in panic, he can't hear anything other than, shh, get me out of this water. Do we want to put a dog in that situation? What if we have to reshoot that scene? Is it going to be harder or easier to get that dog into the water? These are things that we think about as, I would say, elite dog trainers who work with police dogs, work with movie dogs, work with, service dogs and detection dogs, that we don't want to make our job harder. Because if it doesn't work the first time, if it doesn't happen the first time, by putting a dog into a situation where they've never been before, or we don't know if they've ever been in that situation before, is it easier to start from 0.5 and work up, or start at 8, have the dog crash and burn, and then have to find another dog to do it because this dog will now never do it? I brought up yesterday, I think, on a podcast. I still call this a podcast. Facebook Live. I talked about my police dog got his toenail stuck in the chain link fence, and forever, the rest of his career, did not want to have anything to do with chain link fences and jumping over them. Did I get him to do it? Yes. Did he like doing it? Absolutely not. It was a stressful, hard-fought situation. It took us months and months and months of training to try to get the dog over that. On a movie set, do they have months and months? No. So it's ridiculous to me to see how poorly handled this was. Again, you're hearing me going to go back and forth. I'm saying it's poorly handled, but I'm not sure that it's a cause of an uprising to say that we need to have that man arrested or the producers arrested, and some of the things that I've been hearing on the internet. We're hearing in the home and other situations. It's kind of the same thing. It's misinformed in a bad situation. I'm going to look and see. I can see we have quite a few people from my app, at least what my app is saying, watching. Let's see if we have any comments. We have 50 people watching. One comment. Let's see what that comment is. I got to open it here. You're going to see. Oh, I hear. Thank you, Heather Chrisman. Thank you, Heather. I think the thank you is for doing this video. I think you can feel free to type more. I'll keep this on so I can see the comments. All right. So, if some of you are saying, well, Andy, you're being ridiculous. This was a horrible situation. These people should be prosecuted and that kind of stuff. And I need to go back and give some of you my history on why I don't think this is as bad as all that. Again, the dog was stressed. The dog was put in a situation. Is he forever injured mentally? Is he going to die early because of it? Is that situation more so than any situation we put our pet dogs in as we take them for walks or when people visit us? No, I really don't believe so. In the 30 years I've been doing this and the things that I've seen done to dogs, this is a fairly minor... Apologize. I know people are going, what? That wasn't minor. Fairly minor. I mean, it really was. For years. You know, and I think part of it is kind of, I'm resentful. Because for so many years, at least, let's see, 87, I became, 84 became a police officer, 87 became a full-time police officer, 89 got selected in the canine unit. So however many years, a long time. All right, so back then, when I first started, I became a canine handler. It was widely known. I had been a decoy for years even before that and seen things done to police dogs, to German Shepherd dogs, Belgian Malinois, Dutch Shepherds, that I still talk about today. It still occurs today. These things that I was trained to do, I was trained to strike a dog with a stick on his paws until he limped if he didn't let go of the sleeve. And I became very, very good at it. I was very talented at striking a dog on its paw, coming close to breaking his paw and just stopping short. There may have been one dog's paw that I broke that I remember, that he yelped and limped for a very long time. And maybe I didn't break it, but I came pretty close. And at that time, that was like what we were told to do. And they would go, oh, that was good. That was a good correction. You know, we were told that what we did was good. And that's how we were trained. We didn't know. I did not know from any other way, other than it didn't feel that great. Although it felt good being praised for my talent at apparently doing this. That I had good ability to take my hand from down here from zero, snap the stick as a reed stick that they would call it. They also had fiberglass ones that really injure dogs. Very talented to go from here and snap that stick and hit that dog on the paw, on that nerve that ran across the side of his paw, and get them to yelp and let go and go into a garden bark is what we called it. Still done today. All right. So that causes traumatic injury. Now I'm going to talk the difference between traumatic injury and putting a dog in a stressful situation. We do that every day. I'm telling you, the UPS man comes to the door, knocks on the door, the dog's bark and growl and all that. That's stress. That's a stressful situation. Dogs get in stressful situations. That what you saw in there was a stressful situation. Striking a dog with a stick so that he limps for days on end is traumatic injury. And so traumatic injury happens every day and still does on many police dog training facilities today. As we're talking, there's a police dog being trained somewhere and probably getting hit by a stick. The other thing that I got very good at is shocking dogs with cattle prods. We were trained to shock dogs with cattle prods on their testicles, on their chest, anywhere we could to get them to let go of the sleeve or the piece of equipment or whatever it is that we wanted them to do. Cattle prod meant to move a cow, which was traumatic injury to the cow. And here we are taking a dog, which is a fraction of the size of a cow, and using that very same tool on them. I could today walk to a place, well, I could drive to a place, and then walk onto the facility to the place where they keep up to probably 6 cattle prods being recharged and readied for the next training session. They have that many that are standing by to be used on dogs today. I could do that today. It wasn't long ago that I went to that facility to buy a dog, and the trainer there said, "Hey, I need a cattle prod. Can you go get it?" And I had not been there for like 7 years. I knew exactly where to walk, where to go get it, where to unplug it and bring it and take it to him, because that's what is used to train those dogs. One of the largest police dog training facilities in the United States. I had another trainer who would take a pinch collar and go on the lathe and then sharpen each one of those prongs to a point, so that every prong had a point on it, and would use that for training, and would use 2 hands to correct the dog on the sharpened pinch collar. If you ever hear me talk about a sharpened pinch collar in the past, that's what I'm talking about. They purposely sharpened them to the point. Now, many people today put a little plastic thing on there so that they don't injure their dog. Can you imagine somebody that takes them and sharpens them to a point? I've seen dogs, and this was done often, so often, is that they would take a long line, put it on a dog, tie the other end to the bumper of a police car, those push bars for a police car, and tie the other end of the line to that. They would bring the dog to the bumper of the police car. They would have the decoy run, and to teach the dog the call off, they would send the dog, and at the moment that line is going to go tight, they would say, "Here." The dog would hit the end of the line and do a backflip, and then the dog would come back because there's no way he can continue on, and the dog would hit the end of that line running at full speed, whatever that is, very, very fast. Belgian Malinois, a little bit faster than the German Shepherd. We saw this happen more often with Belgian Malinois. Shepherds tend to be smart enough to understand that at the end of that line was going to be a big hit. Malinois tend to do it 3 or 4 times. I've seen dogs with broken backs. I've seen dogs lifted up off the ground on a pole where they had a pulley, and they would pull the dog up on the pole. Again, all these things being done at one of the world's largest police dog training facilities that we have here in the United States. So my resentment is that I've spoken about this. This is not the first time. I've spoken about this in front of audiences in Las Vegas that were 400 to 500 people. I've spoken about it on radio. I've spoken about it on television. I've spoken about it on other podcasts and things that I've done on the internet. And there's never been an outrage. I get people go, "Oh, that's sad." And that's it. Nothing compared to what I'm seeing with a dog that they were trying to put in water, which did not want to go, I grant you. But there's never been the outrage from my years I've been talking about this and saying that I know because I did it. I was one of those people that was trained originally to do that. And then I realized at one point when they were doing it to my police dog and said, "No, that dog does not need to be shocked. My dog does not need to be shocked by a cattle prod." That dog was the kindest, gentlest police dog that went out and bit people and drugged them down and tackled them. That there ever was, and here they are shocking him with a pinch collar. They had 2 trainers with 2 leashes on my dog with a pinch collar, and correcting him at the same time in 2 different directions to the point where he rolled on the ground and peed on himself. When they did that to my dog, that day that they did that to my dog, I drove back to the Anaheim Police Department and told my administration that I was never going back again. That it finally occurred to me, which is I apologize that I did it for as many years as I did, probably 4 or 5 years. That I finally had been shooken up enough to realize that what we were doing to dogs on a daily basis to hundreds of dogs was wrong, and began to change the way things are done. Now that is traumatic injury. Traumatic injury to a dog is abusive. It's inhumane. When we were purposely causing injury. We were making dogs bleed. We were injuring them. We were harming them. We were causing them to limp, and that is traumatic injury. That is what deserves the outrage that I see that's happening with this movie. This movie was meant to bring attention to dogs and how fantastic they are. In the process of shooting a scene which was handled poorly, I think it's a shame that this book that I've read and think is fantastic, at least for me, I liked it, is going to cause a movie not to be seen by some that is actually a really good story and what we need more of in our world. The mishandling. This trainer, if that's a trainer, he needs to get more training and understand what he did wrong and make sure that it doesn't happen again because it's poorly handled. He's taken a situation and taken a dog that may have made a really good movie dog through motivation and not through compulsion and learn how to do it right. there is a bit of compulsion that comes with everything in dog training, regardless of how you feel about purely positive training. You think it actually exists. It really doesn't, as far as I know, and I've seen in 30 years. At some point, there is withholding of something, which is compulsion, or a correction by telling the dog no, or holding a dog back and making him wait before he gets something. All that's compulsion. There's some level of compulsion that needs to happen. I think putting a dog in a stressful situation is common and actually can sometimes be good, so the dog understands when he's not feeling stressed that is exactly what we want. So if we are to set this video, what happened on this video, as the guideline for what we can and cannot cross, we're in trouble as pet dog owners, as service dog trainers, police dogs, detection dogs, therapy dogs. Because when we go into that area, we are going to put the dog into a stressful situation that they need to overcome, right? But we need to do it right, not like was seen here on this video. And we need to do it in a measured pattern to gain success. The way that they started here was backwards. They started at 8, and then we're trying to work down. You can't do that with a dog. You got to start at 0.5 and work up to 8, and then the 10. And you can get there if you do it right. You can get a dog to do some amazing things if you do it starting at the bottom, not starting at the top. Starting at the top, you may not ever get the dog to do it. I remember when I was trained how to get dogs upstairs, and the very first time that I was confronted with a dog that did not want to go upstairs, the trainer that was training me put a long line on the dog and then pulled the dog up the stairs. Eventually, that dog, now it's a strong-willed, confident dog that realized that, hey, if I don't go up those stairs, they're going to put that stupid long line on me, and the dog chose. But that's not always what happens. Sometimes the dog says, you know what, I hate that trainer, I hate my handler, and I hate stairs, and I'm going to run anytime you try to take me to those stairs. I'm going to fight, I'm going to do, and that's more often, I think, what you can get from dogs that aren't at the level is hard to say, but the type of dog that we find for police dogs. But I've seen that done. Oh, I can't tell you how many times. I've seen dogs pull through windows of cars to get them to jump through a window. When instead, simply, you can get a dog to do it. They can get a dog to do it because they now want to, as opposed to, I'm going to do it because I fear what will happen if I don't. It's two hugely different ways of motivating a dog, right? Negative motivation or positive motivation. Does a dog do it because he wants to do it, because he likes doing it, because he likes doing it because it pleases you, and also because he often gets something for it? That's good. If a dog does it because he's afraid of the consequences for not doing it, then that is not good. Because that, again, I think starts to get into the area of traumatic injury. Traumatic injury, again, is one of those things that you have to use as the guideline, not necessarily stress. Stress we talk about in people training. Stress is good. Stress is good for our learning of how to handle poor situations or how to get through situations. At the police academy, there's a lot of fear and stress put in so that we can go out in the street and be successful. And it actually is better for training in some instances. Reaching that level of stress and then overcoming it, right, is really, really powerful. How they handled it here on this movie set is not fantastic. Oh, good. I got a good comment here, I think. Let's see what it has to say. Heather, I'm not a trainer. I just foster multiple GSDs and Belgians for a GSD rescue down in San Diego. But I value your perspective and experience with this awesome breed. Thank you for all you're doing. Oh, thank you. And she corrected the your. You didn't have to correct. I would have thought that was correct. I'm horrible at grammar. The other thing is that I see people get so uptight. Uptight is a good word. I'm going to use uptight. I see uptight stuff happening all the time. And I watch what they're doing and go, you know what? What you're doing to your dog is actually worse than what you thought that I did with this dog. When you're helping a dog through training, a good sound training can be corrections. Using a leash to correct the dog until he's doing something wrong. If you do it right. It has to be fair. It has to be black and white. And it has to be to the point. Was that training that you saw in that video? I don't even want to use training. Was that situation they put the dog in good sound training that was black and white? No, it was all over the place. It made no sense. And nothing was clear to the dog. Only at the end when he went under the water and he was drowning and then eventually got rescued. That is not clear and concise. Again, tossing the dog in would have been much better than doing it the way they did it. Only because the dog would have had less opportunity to stress, would have been in the water right away, and then it would have got to that point where he got to anyway, right? So it would have not prolonged all that stuff that was happening. When we talk about corrections and talk about them being concise and clear, is what I don't see often with pet dog trainers. They're wishy-washy. They're pulling the dog back over and over again, 5, 6, 7 times. The dog doesn't want to heal, and I keep pulling him back. And, well, that's because pulling back does not train a dog to heal. Pulling back teaches the dog to pull harder, so they don't get pulled back. Right? The dog goes, oh, I almost made it that time. Oh, I almost made it that time. Oh, I'm gonna really, and so it causes the opposite reaction. Right? In their mind, they're going, well, I don't want to give him the correction that actually makes him stop because, it might hurt him. But no, you're harming the situation. You're harming your relationship far longer by doing those pullbacks and then causing the dog to kind of do this. And that twisting of the neck and the injuries that can occur from that are actually greater than if you give the dog a very clear, sound correction to tell him, you know what, I don't want you out there. Really quick pop. The dog goes, oh, you don't want me here? You want me here? Got it, right? Very fast, very to the point, didn't injure him. There's no traumatic injury. The dog understands, oh, I get it. You told me that that's not a good place for me to be. But when I'm here, none of that correction that I felt happens, right? And it's very clear, and you'd have to do it once or twice and you're done. As opposed to what we see quite often is people pulling and tugging and giving a correction that is not a correction repeatedly over and over and over again, really, really wishy-washy. That is not good sound training. And so back to my point is that we see dogs that have pinch collars on that shouldn't have pinch collars, right? We see dogs that are on harnesses that should be on a pinch collar. We see dogs that are on those stupid gentle leaders that I can't stand. And I know there's many of you that think those are great. They're not. They're not training tools. They can cause way more injury than the other tools that you think are horrific and are not. And so when I see people go, oh my gosh, the dog hit the end of the leash when he was trying to run out to go say hi, and oh, that was horrible. Well, then you're going to have a problem with just probably about everything that I say, because we need to be clear and concise. We need to make sure that we have the correct tool for the correct dog and the correct human being, right? So when you've been part of Falco Canine Academy, we talk about that the tools that we decide to use are for that person with that dog at this given time. And that may change. It may change when the dog becomes more obedient and more understanding of the principles of being a loving and respectful dog to that human being, and the human being being loving and respectful to that dog. It may change. We may change that tool. Then also the tool may change with the dog based on which human being they're with. With one person in the family, the dog may need, in our recommendation, because the dog is so strong and powerful, a pinch collar to make this person more relevant. In the hands of somebody that's stronger and bulkier and has a better understanding, maybe the dog is in my hands, that I've had more experience. I can't tell you the last time I had a dog of my own personally on a pinch collar. Any dog. The strongest, meanest, nastiest dog, only because it doesn't make me a great person, just makes me a person with experience in dog training, that I can take a big, strong Belgian Malinois Dutch Shepherd that tends to pull everybody else on their face. I can handle that dog quite often on a flat collar. Why? Because I have training experience. I'm concise. The rules are very tight. The dog understands, right? And so in the hands of somebody else, that dog definitely would probably never be may never ever be on a flat collar when out in public on a walk, because it'll simply see a squirrel and the human being becomes irrelevant, because the genes kick in when he sees the squirrel, right? And that's all that matters. And the only way the human being becomes relevant is if there's a pinch collar on that makes the human being relevant. Does that make sense? So these things can shift and change and that kind of stuff, but it takes a trainer, in many cases, that has the experience and knows how to do this to match the tool to the human being that matches to the dog at that given time. At that given time is another important part of understanding your dog. When the dog's a puppy, that's different than when the dog is adolescent. When the dog is a senior citizen, it's different than when the dog is an adolescent. When the dog is at home, that's different than when the dog is at a dog park. That situation is different. It may be different when you're on a hiking trail where you know that you're going to see rabbits and squirrels running by. With some dogs, That situation is different. With other dogs, it's no different, right? So understanding all those things and what you need to be aware of is key. Now, hopefully it doesn't sound like I've trailed off the point of this particular message. This message is understanding the situation you're in and knowing how to respond. And this trainer, this film crew, this production company was not aware what needed to happen to have a successful shoot. They weren't prepared. There's no doubt that there is I've been on a lot of television sets, not so many movie sets. I think only been on one movie set. Well, maybe two movie sets that I can think of. But they're not that much different. There's always some type of game plan for what's going to happen on that day. And there's a show flow, and there's something written down. This is what we are going to do today. You almost always know ahead of time what's going to happen. So there's no doubt that pool just did not get filled seconds before they brought that dog onto the set. That somebody knew that, hey, we need this dog to jump down 3 feet into a pool with rushing water and swim to a human being for safety. And when the dog, the people that are responsible for that dog were told, then they should have taken action to make sure that was going to be successful. Somebody should have said, hey, can your dog, and I have 3 TV shows right now that we currently have had in production. One of them we've been talking about for over a year. I don't know if it'll ever be on TV, but we have had 20 or 30 meetings about what's going to take place on this show. On a TV show that doesn't even exist yet. Do you think that somebody knew that this was going to be one of the scenes they're going to shoot and that they could not have prepared that dog for that particular thing? That's the problem, right? They just say, oh, that's a German Shepherd. This is one of the fallacies of that even dog trainers have. Well, or let's say it was a Newfoundland. They say, oh, it's a Newfoundland. They're water rescue dogs. Yeah, he'll do it. No. My friend and great customer, Sally Frost, had a Newfoundland, and she went to take the dog to water rescue training down in San Diego and realized that the dog did not understand the concepts of even entering the water. I think it was entering the water. I know for sure it wasn't that it would avoid the rope. The dog was required to carry a rope to the person they're going to rescue. So that's one of the first things they work on. And this dog had no desire to hold anything in its mouth, did not want to carry the rope and that kind of stuff. And so unlike a herding dog, like a Tavern, who you can put in a group of goats that just suddenly begins to herd. It just happens. It's the craziest thing. I've seen it done. I've seen it demonstrated. A dog that's never seen goats in its entire life, at maybe 2 years of age, a year of age, gets placed into a group of goats or sheep and begins to herd them. Right? It's just there. There's some things that a dog is not. And to think, and some German Shepherds can't swim. All right, and I've seen it. We've done training here at my house. I have a pool right over here, and we put the decoy on the other side of the pool. We take these dogs that come fresh from Czechoslovakia and Slovakia, where I fly them in, and we say, stop or I'll send the police dog, and we send the dog. The dog does not even know what a pool looks like. He thinks it's some weird blue thing that he can step on, and I've seen dogs just run and then think they're going to walk on water to get to the other side, and they get about halfway down the water, and they just sink. They hit the water and they just sink, and they cannot swim. They freeze and they fall to the bottom, and we've had to jump in and rescue them. And again, okay, so you're going to say, oh, see, that's why you don't think this is a horrible situation because you've done that yourself to dogs. No, we're training dogs. We put them in situations, and we've learned from our lessons. Right? That was a lesson like, some dogs can't swim. And so that happens. And so I think that was the fallacy, that they did not have the experience to understand that, you know what, maybe we should prepare for this shoot. And that's what they did not do. All right. I hope I didn't ramble on there too long. Heather, thank you for your attention. Thank you for writing in your comment. I think we might have lost a couple people. Either they didn't like what I was saying or they just got bored with the discussion. But let's see, how many people did we have? Somewhere in the neighborhood of 50 people watching. And so I can see, 71. Now we're up to 71 views. All right, so 71 views on this particular video. Make sure and share. I'm really interested to hear what people have to say. I know for sure what I had to say in some areas was probably controversial, and you're thinking that I'm off my rocker, and that's fine. I would like to hear about that. I do not shy away. I don't have thin skin in that regard, and would just love to hear other comments if you're seeing this on other Facebook pages, for me to see it, probably you're going to have to go to the Falco Canine Academy Facebook page. And so click on the link. It says up there somewhere, shared by Falco Canine Academy. Click on that link and then do me a favor and put your comment there, because I think we have a couple shares that this automatically shares to. I could be wrong. Well, at least have one share. Let's see where that share is. Maybe it won't show me. So anyway, if you're seeing this in another Facebook page or another posting somewhere on somebody's personal page, go to Falco Canine Academy's Facebook page and comment there. Tell me that I'm full of crap, or you hate my guts, or that you have your own experience was the same thing. That would be great. I just would love to hear what people are thinking out there. Again, just to recap, we got the incident there with A Dog's Purpose, the movie, and the situation where a dog was put into a situation that he wasn't prepared for, and the controversy behind it, and then how people were just in an uproar thinking this is abuse. I fall short of calling it abuse. I call it just inappropriate handling of the situation with this dog. The dog was not prepared properly, trained properly. I don't think anybody deserves to be arrested. You can protest the movie and not go. I think that that's your prerogative, and maybe appropriate for you if that's how you feel. But in calling for the heads of these people that were involved, in actuality, I think that the person handling the dog was trying to really be super careful, and in trying to be super careful, put himself into even a worse situation than he'd already started with. So to say that he was a horrible, nasty person to this dog and abusive, I think is a little strong. I think that he just did not know. Is that an excuse? Always no. But I think that he was really trying. I could tell that he was trying to make it as easy as possible on the dog. There are far more other things going on with dogs right now that we need to be very upset about, very concerned about. That there's so many dogs in our shelters and rescues, that there are still being dogs tortured today to become police dogs, that I know for a fact is happening. It isn't long ago that I was at an event and saw the very same trainer that trained me shocking a dog with a cattle prod. Not that long ago. You would think this was something that was back in the dark ages, but no, it's still happening today. That's the kind of stuff that we need to be outraged about and demanding not be a way of training dogs in our world. All right, so that's it for me. I hope that all made sense. I hope it didn't go too far off track and in too many different places, but there is a lot. There's things about this situation that I did not speak on, that I've left alone only because it would start another 45 minutes to an hour of discussion. And that's just the way dog training is and these situations are. But maybe someday I'll bring up some of the other situations a little bit later on. All right. Hope that helped some people's understandings and was clear enough for those of you that were watching. All right. Take care. I hope you guys have a great, great day. And I have another couple things I'm going to be happy to talk about here in the next couple days. So stay tuned. Make sure and share and like and follow us here on Falco Canine Academy. I'd really appreciate it. And again, please comment and let me know what you think about this situation. All right, take care. I'll talk to you later. Bye.